How do you deal with controlling people? It kind of reminds me of, I was doing a seminar one night and a lady actually asked that question. And she said, how do you deal with controlling people? And I said, well, you convert them. And she goes, what do you mean? She thought I was talking about like faith or something. I said, you convert them. She goes, how am I going to convert them? I said, you convert them from being controlling people into being frustrated people. She goes, what? And I said, well, if you think about it, all you have to do is say no, and they're no longer a controlling person. They're just frustrated. See, here's the point I'm trying to get across. In a sense, there's no such thing as a controlling person in a way, because a controlling person, the ones we describe that way, are people that exhibit attempts to try to control you, right? But those are just attempts. And the only way they can become actually controlling is if we give them control. Now, I understand there's some situations where, they might be using force and things like that, but I'm talking about where it's more relational control and psychological control. That's power that is actually handed over. And then we say, well, they're so controlling because I had to do this, or they made me, or whatever. And you'll hear this kind of passive language in there, like made me, had to, didn't have a choice, etc. And you start to drill down on that. And there are some situations, I understand, where you don't have good choices. But most of the times, what we're talking about is we do have choices, we just don't exercise them. Now, that gets to the heart of the problem. When you're dealing with somebody that tries to control you, there's usually got to be something that you need from them in order for them to have that power. So, for example, if they're trying to get you to do something with your time or your energy or your money or other resources or your body or your head or whatever it is, and they're trying to extract from you and control you, manipulate you, control your life, make you do this or that or whatever it is, then those attempts are going to come. They can come through guilt or fear or, anger or other kinds of, relational manipulation, like withdrawing love or criticizing or, gaslighting you or whatever it is. But for us to give into that, we have to have some sort of need. Otherwise, we go, no, I don't want to do that. So look at this. When you have a need for approval, for example, if you need somebody's approval, they're going to be able to control you by withholding approval or granting approval when you do what they want. If you need for people to be pleased with you, happy with you, like you, then they can pretty much get control of you because they control the resource that you need. If you need for them to be in a good mood, to not be angry, to not be mad, then they can pretty much control you. If you need to feel okay about your choices only when they give you permission, because you feel guilty if you say no, then you're not going to get that approval unless you do what they want. So there's a host of stuff that basically originates with us because we tend to give away freedom that we actually have. We give away freedom because holding on to it costs something that we don't want to pay, like somebody's rejection, like somebody's disapproval, like somebody's being in a good mood, being happy with us, all those kinds of things. Now, I want to say a few things about that. First of all, 90%, I don't know the real number, I'm making this up, right? I don't know if that's ever been studied, but a large majority of the time in good relationships, what you're fearing is not going to happen for this reason. If you grew up under controlling people or have had a lot of experience with controlling people, then you're wired to assume and expect if you say no, somebody's going to reject you. If you say no, somebody's going to get mad at you. But it's very possible that now you're not in that relationship anymore, you're not in that environment anymore, and if you said no, they'd go, oh, okay, fine. I see this all the time when people start to like learn that, wow, I have a lot more freedom in life than I knew I had, because I got wired to think I didn't have any. And so the first thing I want you to do is to realize a lot of these are self-imposed limits. You're remembering when it wasn't okay. And you kind of, somebody say, where do you want to go to dinner? Or what movie do you want to see? Or whatever. And you go, I don't know, what do you want? Well, really, you might have a thought of something you do want to do, but you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to make them, when they're not like that at all. And in fact, one of the things we know is the more passive and adaptive somebody is, fearing abandonment or fearing rejection, the more likely they are to be abandoned and rejected, because they don't have any power in their relationship. And relationships have got to be mutual to have glue over a long period of time in a good way. So I want you to check it out in your head first. Now, secondly, it may be that you're right. They might be a controlling person. They may be giving you every reason to believe that they are that way. But the first thing you got to do is you got to get in touch with your fear and your need and what it is, and you have to take care of that. Look at it this way. Let's say that you're in a crummy job with a crummy boss, and you don't want to work for that person anymore, but you need the money, right? I would advise you, look, go get your savings strong first. Go get your resume strong first. Get the skills. In other words, get the power that you actually need, so you don't need that job for a while, or you don't need that job because it's the only one you can get, because maybe you need to take a course or get another certification or whatever. But the more power that you actually have, the need for that person that has control of you begins to go down. Okay, in the same way, you see this in codependent relationships all the time. Somebody will be an enabler, like with an addict or somebody really hurtful, and they need that relationship because they'll be all alone in the world if they don't have it, so they keep giving in and be in control. But then they go join a good boundaries group or a good codependency group, or they go find, you know, a good therapist or a group of friends to support them. Now they know if they get rejected, they've got somewhere to go. They've got friends. They're not alone in the world. See, those fears come basically from childhood. When a child, if they don't have their parents' love and approval, that's the whole world. That's where all their resources are. That's everything it's their only option. But as an adult, you'll continue to treat people as if they are the entire source of love and approval and connection and help and understanding and everything that's in the universe, when they're not. It's a big world out there. And so you got to get your support system in shape first. Then it's a matter of dealing with those, you know, the voices in your heads and learning to recognize those. And you learn to say no to them, and you do that in the context of the people that are helping you, your buddy system, right? You got to go check back in with them and say, oh, I'm about to, no, don't do that. Oh, I'm afraid. Oh, well, call me first. Well, let's role play it. And you use your coaches and your buddies to actually strengthen you to go back in there and do it. So remember, if you're feeling controlled, there's generally two places that comes from. There's a verse in the Bible that's talking about giving, and it says this: don't give under compulsion or begrudgingly, but give as you've purposed in your heart, because God loves a cheerful giver. All right, now think about this. Begrudgingly or compulsion, under compulsion, those are the two things that get us. The begrudging giver is when I feel pressure from somebody and they're manipulating me and pressuring me, and I give in, then I begrudge. I don't want to give in. I'm saying yes, but I really mean no, and I begrudge it because I'm being controlled from the outside, okay? Under compulsion means I'm being controlled from the inside. I feel compelled. The voice in my head says, well, you're selfish if you say no, or how could you do that? And so we feel compelled and we don't have freedom. So dealing with the loss of freedom is going to come from realizing the interpersonal pressures that you tend to give into and storing up strength there in other places and new skills, or realizing the internal pressures that you give into. Then back to the first part of that, give as you've purposed in your heart. This is what I love to tell people all the time. Sometimes, like, if you've got a family member that needs help a lot, well, that's great. But purpose how you're going to help them. Sit down and say, you know what, I've got so much time, every week I could drop by, or I could give you a call, or we could, but purpose it, budget it, decide this is how much I can give and how much I can help you out, and this is how much I can't. That way, each time they call you, you don't feel like you're starting all over and have to do whatever they want in any given time. Your resources, your time, your energy, your talents, your money, all of that, those are finite, really. They're like, you have $10, you have $10. So what do? You budget it. And this relationship is going to get $1 of this relationship is going to get $3, I'm going to get a couple of bucks, and you budget finite resources. Well, you're finite. So remember these finite resources, your time, your energy, how much you're going to help, how much you're going to bail somebody out, what you're going to give to, what you're going to support, what you're going to give into, all of that. Purposeful living is deciding, I've got this much time for you, or I've got this much money, or this much energy, or whatever, and explaining that, say that's what I can do. And if they can't accept that limit, remember the triggers, because if they're going to do the guilt thing, you've already taken care of that. If they're going to do the anger thing, you've already taken care of that, because you know that you can empathize and say, I'm sorry you're frustrated, but that's all I can do. And then, you have friends that will support you. So find the need inside. Find the need. Cure the need through other support and other ways of upping your balance sheet. Learn the voices in your head. Learn to say no to those. And then interact purposefully to give to some people and not. Now remember this also. Not everybody is somebody you're going to give to. You don't owe the world whatever they want. You don't owe somebody whatever they feel entitled to. Choose the people. You want to give in ways that help. Generally speaking, giving in to controlling people because you're thinking you're being kind, it's not really helping. All it's doing is enabling a pattern to continue. So if you got time or energy or money to give to somebody, give it to somebody that actually is asking, not demanding. Demanding is control. Entitlement is control. A request by a humble person is something that if they have a need, compassionate people want to give to. But give where it's going to be used well, not where it's going to be just warding off somebody's anger.